Wherever possible, I really like to refer back to industry precedents, real-world examples of where these attacks have occurred. I want to start with a few different examples here before I go on and talk about just how prevalent denial of service attacks are becoming. So a really good example here. HSBC was attacked in January 2016. There are many different upsides for an attacker targeting a bank, and we'll look more at these motivations later on in the module. So that's financial. Another good example is political. We often see denial of service attacks used in order to make political statements. And in this case here, we're talking about the Serbian president's website. And you don't get much more political than targeting the ruler of a nation state. Another one that's been quite prevalent in recent years is attacks against gaming services. And as you'll see later on in this module, this is very often just to antagonize people. And we've seen this happening with Xbox and PlayStation and Steam and a whole bunch of different gaming platforms. So that's targeting a very different group to the previous two examples. Denial of service is also being used extensively in extortion attempts, targeting florists on Valentine's Day. That obviously has the potential to be very disruptive to a business on what's probably their busiest day of the year. The thing of particular interest with these four examples here is just how diverse they are, very different classes of site, how recent they are, they're all within 1 month of when I'm recording this course, and just how close together they are, less than a month, between every single one of these events. Denial of service attacks are rampant, and I want to go on and show you just how much they've been increasing over the past few years. What this graph here is showing us is how the scale of denial of service attacks is increasing. Now, as we progress through the course, we're going to talk more about what it means to have a 60 gigabit attack or a 500 gigabit attack, as we can see up in the far right corner. But what this chart really clearly shows us is just how much these attacks are increasing in their capability. And really, as the size of a denial of service attack increases, it is an increase in the capability and effectiveness of the attack, because it's that much harder to fight off. So they've been getting massively larger very, very quickly. And this survey was from October 2015, where it's clearly maxing out at that 500 gigabit per second mark. But it doesn't take very long for the game to move even further. This is now January 2016, the largest denial of service attack in history, 602 gigabits a second. Again, we'll talk more about what that size actually means as we progress through the course. But the main thing for now is it's 20% larger than the highest mark on that previous chart, which was only a few months earlier. Denial of service attacks are on the rise. They're on the rise in terms of frequency, and they're on the rise in terms of size. We might have known about them for quite a long time now. In fact, denial of service attacks in one form or another have been around as long as computing has been. But particularly this class of attack, the distributed denial of service attack, is becoming enormously popular, and I'm going to talk about the reasons why in this first module. Before we do that though, I want to go on and define denial of service attack, and then I'm going to give you a really good example to help you visualize how it works.